So we discussed today the method of data collection. Right? So far what we have discussed the research questions, research problems, and then the security, the methodology, research design, and this I think you can identify how you can select the data, how you can select your sample, how you can select your population, how you can select the research philosophy based on the studies, on the things that we have studied so far. Right? So here after what we are going to do, we are going to collect the data and going to have the analysis, right? Just have an idea regarding how we can do our analysis. So before moving to the analysis, how the researcher can collect the data for his research. So therefore, the lesson is how you can collect the data. Online students, can you hear me?
Yes, madam.
Online students, can you hear me?
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
Okay, hope you can hear me. Plus, I already shared the screen as well. I can see it as well. The objectives are mentioned here. Actually, what we are going to discuss. Okay, so this is where we are. Already we identified the strategies, 6 strategies, and then the researchers' interference and the studies unit, and then we identify the sample design as well. Right? So where we are now, the data collection methods, the way how you can collect the data. Okay, so going to the identification of data collection, you need to first identify what kind of research analysis or what kind of research that I'm going to use for my research. We have basically 2 strategies or 2 methods. We are calling it as a quantitative and the qualitative analysis. What do you mean by the quantitative analysis? Quantitative analysis, what it means? It has a we are dealing with the numbers as well as it has a thorough analysis, right? Analysis. Especially we are dealing with the numbers. Very good. So then if it is a qualitative study, if it is a qualitative study, what we are going to analyze? If it is a qualitative study, we are going to analyze the perception, feeling, thoughts, values, behaviors of the individuals. In there, we are not going to do a huge analysis with the statistical software. We are going to analyze the data, but we have not the involvement of the statistical software. So therefore, qualitative analysis and having the idea regarding quantitative research as well as the qualitative research is really, really important to identify what sort of data that we are going to collect. Here it has been mentioned, quantitative research, the data produced are always numerical and they are analyzed using the mathematical and statistical method. So that is the important part. We collect the numerical data, plus that numerical data will be analyzed through the mathematical plus the statistical models. In qualitative research, it is any which does not involve the numbers and numerical data. But in the qualitative analysis, we are not going to have we are not going to collect the numerical data. That is one specialty. Plus, it's often involve words of language, but may also use the pictures or photographs and the observations. That means how we can analyze the perception, how we can analyze the belief, how we can analyze the attitudes through these observations. That means we can take those things as a word, language, and then the pictures and photograph as well. So basically, in the qualitative analysis, we are not using mathematical plus the statistical model to analyze our data set in the qualitative studies. Okay, for an example, if we are conducting a research regarding the traditional research regarding the sustainable reporting and audit quality. Sustainable reporting and audit quality. Is there any impact of identifying sustainable organization towards the audit quality? So what we can do, we can collect the second data and predict it, whether there is a relationship or else not. But regarding the quantitative analysis, what we can do regarding if we are analyzing the manager's perceptions, can we collect the numbers? No, we can't. We have to take their perception. So therefore, it may be sometimes the attitudes, or it's the pictures, or it's the observation. Most probably, it may be the words, right? But knowing numbers, can we ask that it as a 5-point Likert scale? What is your perception? Whether you agree, disagree, and likewise? No, you can't. Therefore, you have to ask the question from the audience or its managers, and you have to take out the real figure with the words. I think like this. So this is my attitude. So I believe this. Likewise, nature express their idea throughout the words. In there, we don't have the numbers. But in the first example, the financial reporting, sustainable reporting, and audit quality, we can take the numbers, rationalize and relationship. So this is the basic difference between quantitative and the qualitative analysis. Okay. The next thing is we need to clearly identify the primary data and the secondary data concept. So these things you need to identify before moving to the data collection process. Right? Primary data and the secondary data. What do you mean by the primary data? We studied this one in several times. Primary data, first-hand data. So we can name those things as first-hand data. How it becomes the first-hand data? If I ask a question from you and take out the answers from you, what kind of a data that is? Exactly, it is a first-hand data. That means it's a primary. I collected your answers and I report it, and I make a report and report it in the department. Later on, after once we complete, there may be other batches who are doing the research and other things. So they came and they are asking your opinions or else your perception. In that sense, I give that answer booklet to them to refer it. What it is there. It may be the secondary data. It may be the secondary data. Okay, we go to the definition first and then data. Researcher gathers the first-hand data for the specific purpose of the study. If we are collecting the primary data, if we are collecting the first-hand data, definitely it is because of the specific person, specific reason. For example, give me the examples for primary data. In what kind of scenarios we are collecting the primary data? As I remember, in the last week, I explained that census and statistics department collect the data. Right? In which kind of scenarios? If they want to collect the, or else if they want to have idea regarding Sri Lankan population. For every 4 years, they are collecting, or else they are sorry, they are collecting the Sri Lankan population metrics. Population, there is a label. That is what. So they are collecting what? They are collecting data. Why they are collecting the data? They need to have an idea regarding Sri Lankan population. That is a census. Right? That is census. Especially regarding the primary data, if the researcher is collecting the primary data, there should be a specific reason. And that should be a first-hand data to be a primary. First-hand data with a specific person. With the specific purpose, we are calling it as a primary data. Okay. There are main 4 types of primary data collection. The way how you can collect the primary data, the first one, interview, and then the observation, and then administrative questionnaires, and the last one, experiments. So this is our lesson about how we can conduct the interview, how we can collect the observations, and how we can share the self-attested questionnaires, and then how we can do an experiment. So this is our lesson about. Okay. So then we will identify the secondary data. Primary data and the already collected data for your research or a specific reason, we are calling it as a secondary data. That means referring to the collected or referring to the data which has been already collected by someone else for their specific person, for their specific purpose. Right. So data gathered throughout the existing sources. So we can name again it as a data gathered through the existing sources. So these have been collected by others for any other purpose than the purpose of the current study. Someone published the annual report. What is the purpose of publishing annual report? To provide the financial data plus the other non-financial data to the company stakeholders. So that is the purpose of publishing annual report by the company. But as a researcher, if you want to do a research on that companies, what you can do, you can go to the annual report of that company and take out some figures for your research. Whereas what we are doing, we are extracting the published data by someone else with their specific purpose. Right? So that is called as the secondary data. Right? Secondary data. That means referring to the existing sources or existing sources. Okay, please write down the examples for primary data and the secondary data. 4 examples. Write down 4 examples that the researcher can use for the as the primary data as well as the secondary data. Write down the examples, 4 examples. 4 examples for primary data and 4 examples for the secondary data. Examples of private patient. Survey, interviews, questionnaires, observations. Yes, I know you open. Online. Situations exactly compared to those testing they are along with the results. They compare course, find the speed, course media, writing. Because it's one source, we have a aspect. Yeah, we think about that, audit firms. Other one, what is the other one? The brokerage. Brokerage report, we can refer the brokerage reports sometimes. Audit firm, they if you are working there, we can't go to audit firm method, but you can't access it. Okay. So this is another thing, how you can identify, or this is another thing you need to identify very clearly if you are going with the quantitative, qualitative, primary and the secondary data. Okay. So please draw a map how you can link the qualitative and quantitative studies with the primary and secondary data. Please draw the chart. Right. So my question is, you have to link the quantitative studies and the qualitative studies with the primary data and the secondary data. Right. You can do it. The thing is, quantitative data can be taken throughout the quantitative research study can be conducted through the qualitative, quantitative studies can be conducted through the primary as well as secondary data, right? As well as qualitative studies, primary and secondary data. Please leave that one. You just think, right? If I am referring to the qualitative data, if I am referring to the qualitative research, what sort of data that you collect? That's the other one. If a researcher is going to conduct a research regarding qualitative studies, what sort of data that they can refer? Therefore, link the study is as well as the data set. Link the studies and the data. Again, my question is, researchers, so they have two disciplines basically. First one is qualitative and the other one quantitative. You just think about it. Now we already identified the studies. What do you mean by the quantitative studies and what do you mean by the qualitative studies? And then what is the primary data and what are the secondary data? We identified that. Now you need to link those. As a researcher, if he is going to conduct a quantitative study, what sort of data that they can use? And the other one, if the researcher is going to conduct a quantitative study, what sort of data they need to prepare is linkage. He can do it. Linking the data with the research studies. Now you need, if I'm going to refer the numbers, what sort of data that I can use as a research. If I'm going to analyze the belief and other things, what sort of data that they can use. It will be really helpful you to understand what sort of data that you are going to collect for your research. You have to identify what are the data sets that I'm going to refer for my research. Is it primary or is it secondary? That is basically based on the research, whether it is a quantitative or qualitative research. Okay. Basic idea. So we have two types of studies. First one is and the other one, second one, qualitative data collection method or its qualitative studies. Qualitative studies. Exactly, we don't have a chance to analyze the secondary data. If it is a qualitative study, you have to use the primary data, right? So we are not dealing with this part because why? We are not going to study the qualitative study. Therefore, as a research student, fourth year research students, you can go with the quantitative studies either with the primary data or the secondary data. Right. Now here I write down what are the methods of collecting the primary data. Right. So we have the chance to make the interviews and then questionnaires, experiments, and then what else? Observations. Right. Same can be used here. The way how you can collect the data, primary data, observations, and then interviews, experiments, and the last one, questionnaires. If it is a secondary data in the sense, already we are referring to the published data. Especially, you can collect the data through the annual reports, journals, and magazines, online databases, central bank report, websites. If you are referring to the investment related research, you can refer to the investing.com as well. It reflects all the financial data regarding the companies, including the share prices as well. Right. So therefore, this one you need to identify very clearly. So what sort of study that I'm going to use for my research, whether it is a qualitative or whether it is a quantitative. If it is a quantitative, you have the chance to deal with the two types of data. The first one is For your research, you can do the analysis with the primary data. Plus, you have the chance to analyze your data set. So you have the chance to analyze make the analyze with the secondary data. Right? So this needs to be very clear cut you, otherwise you can't collect the data. data right? Plus, based on your research topic, so this will be determined whether it is a primary or whether it is a secondary. In my first mention example, it's regarding the integrated report, sustainable reporting and audit quality. The relationship between sustainable reporting and audit quality, we can deal with that research via the secondary data. We can measure the reporting quality throughout the secondary data. But if you want to analyze the perception of sustainable reporting managers in the organizations, you don't have the chance to analyze the secondary data. What you need to refer is the primary data. Right? Primary data. Okay, we start with the first one, interview. Right? What do you mean by the interview? Yes, it's a discussion with the purpose, right? So we need to more individuals. If there is a discussion with the purpose with two or more individuals, we can call it as a interview. But there should be a specific reason. Always purpose should be there. Always objective should be there. Otherwise, these things may be the interviews, right? So we are also having the discussion. Is this the interview? No, right? This is not the interview. So specific purpose should be there, and then two or more individuals should be there. It is so we can call it as an interview. Plus, if we are coming to the interview, definitely there guided document. Isn't it? Yes. You all pay it. So you all like 30%. That means you are working at somewhere else. When you are going to your working place, go moving to that one. So you had an interview. Respective interview panel come up with just without papers and other things, and they are sitting there and asking the questions. No. So they are already pre-prepared, and then so they have the standard. So they are come up with that standards with the very clear-cut purpose. So they, what is their purpose? They need to recruit you, or else they need to recruit the suitable person. They are the position. So that is their purpose. When we are doing a research, can we conduct the interview? Can we conduct the interview? As a researcher, can the researchers conduct the interview to collect the data? Yes, exactly. What sort of research studies? Exactly for the qualitative, right? Qualitative studies. By having the interviews with the purpose, with the persons, what you can take by having the discussions with the individual, what sort of things you can take out. Why your employees are interviewing you. Yes, exactly. They already know your qualifications. By going through your CV, they can realize their qualification. Yeah, they need another thing. That is why they are asking for it. That means they are taking out your attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, and other things. All the things will be monitored by them, and they are giving the marks to you. Type as a researcher, can we conduct the interview for correct for our research? Yes. Basic studies, we can conduct the example. That question here, I can go to that. From technical challenges. Okay? Monetary issues are there, financial issues are there, relationship issues are there. Likewise, they will explain their own ideas, own attitudes regarding these challenges and the other things. Okay, so that is how we can conduct the interviews for a research perspective, right? So definitely this type of interview is helpful to collect the data for the qualitative studies, not as a researcher for your level. You have the chance to interview, but you are not going to have the collective research. Okay, so what are the interviews that you know? What are the interviews that you know? Yes, experiment people, okay. Structured interview as well as the unstructured interview. Structured interview, it has a proper plan, right? Pre-guided document is there. The interviewer is ready with the pre-guided document, with the guidelines and other things. So they prepare the set of questions, okay, once the interviewer. See, so we'll ask the first question. We'll ask them to introduce themselves. And then we'll ask about their qualifications. So then we'll ask about their future attitudes or its future ambitions and others. So then we'll give the case study. And then we'll identify the salary scale. Those things are picked up with the organizational context. Lastly, we'll ask what is the salary scale that you are expecting. And then we'll ask when you can pump your job. That is right, likewise, there is a predetermined question. It's the chronological order. Right? So it is called as the structured interview. All the things are very properly structured in that interview. With the purpose, guidelines are there, the background is very structured, environment is very structured, the interview panel is structured. All the things are clearly determined very well in the structured interview. But in the unstructured interview, unstructured interview. Yes, unstructured interview. We are, yes, not prepared. Okay. Does not enter the interview setting with the planned sequence of questions. We prepare, right? So, but not like the structured interview, we don't have the proper plan for the. That is, we can't fix it, right? In the structured interview, we can fix the questions. First, we'll ask the background, and then lastly, we'll ask about the salary and when you can come. So, likewise, the order is there in the structured interview. So, that type of a structured interview can be conducted for the qualitative study. But there are some the incidents we can't conduct the structured interview. For example, if we are going to interview the beggar, right? So, is there any chronological order to ask the question? No, we can't. So, we can first ask the name, but we can't look at the question here and ask the question from there. We have to ask the question based on their answers. Right? If they don't give us the name, what we can do? We can ask about the background. What you are doing. So then if we give some details regarding that one, the third question may be different. Based on the answers of third question, fourth question will be different. Likewise, we can't make the fixed question for them. Why? So that is the nature of that, the participant or its respondents. In that kind of scenarios, we have to use the unstructured interview method. Whereas we identify does not enter to the interview setting with the planned sequence of questionnaires. So not prepared. We can't define it as in the unstructured interview. We are not prepared. We prepared, but the thing is, question order can't be clearly fixed. Right? Most probably for the interview panels for the qualitative studies, if they are going in the rural areas and other things, so they are referring to the unstructured interview. එක්දන්නකෝ ඈත ගමකට ගිහිල්ලා ඔය වැල්ලවාය පැත්තට වගේ ගිහිල්ලා ඔන්ටිපීනියස් ඉන්ටර් කරන් ගත්තාම අපේ ප්ලෑන් එකට ක්වෙස්චන් අහන්න බෑ අපි කියලා. ඉස්සෙල්ලා ඒක අපි ඊළ කතා කරලා තමයි අහන්නේ. එයාලා කියන්න තේරෙන අපේ ක්වෙස්චන්ස් වලට ආන්සර්ස් දෙන්න අපි කියන්නේ නැහැ. එයාලා කතා කරන විදිහට තමයි මොකද කරන්නේ? අපි ක්වෙස්චන්ස් අහන. සමහර අපි කතා කරන්න ගියම තමයි අපේ ක්වෙස්චන්ස් වලට ආන්සර්ස් දෙන්නේ. ක්වෙස්චන් අහන්නේ නැහැ අපි. එයාලා තමයි කතා කරන්නේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් ක්වෙස්චන් එකක් අහලා ප්‍රශ්නයකට උත්තරයක් දෙනවා කියන්නේ find කරන්න බැහැ. So likewise we have so in some sort of scenarios you have to use you have to use the structured interview, and then some sort of scenarios you have to use the unstructured interview. If it is a structured interview, so there are 3 stages in the structured interview. What those are? First one, what is it? An introduction. Now, just remind your first interview that you have faced before when you are participating for the job, right? So you already go to the interview now. Just recall that memory. How was it? How was the first experience? What they asked first? How they started their interview? Yes? Tell about yourself. Rather than asking that question, didn't they provide their introduction? So this is the manager, this is the accountant, so this is the senior accountant, junior accountant, and likewise they are starting with the self-introduction. So they need to first introduce themselves. If the time permits, the time doesn't permit to ask the question. So in the last sense, they are not asking that one, but if it is a proper one, so they need to give their introduction. So this is Suri, or I am Suri. So I am the accountant of this campus, and likewise, like they have to clearly give the introduction to the interviewer. So then ask them to come. Right. So then, what is the second stage? A set of topics in the logical order. Now then they are asking, okay, what is your name? What is your name? Give the introduction about yourself. Where did you work previously? What is your qualification? What are the educational qualifications? What are the extracurricular qualifications? Likewise, they are asking the questions according to the predetermined order, right? So when they are asking the questions, so if some answers are not clear to them, what they are asking, some supporting questions, we call those things as a probing questions, right? So for example, if I ask the question, what is your ambition, right? You tell, after completing this training program, I want to become an entrepreneur. If it is not clear to the interviewer, so what they can do, they can again in what sort of scenarios, what are the interesting business, and likewise to justify that entrepreneur word, so they can ask the supporting questions, whereas we are calling the probing questions, supporting questions. The answer is not clear. So these are the main things that they are identifying when it comes to it. So they are giving the introduction and they are going to ask the questions. In between these questions, if the answer is not clear, what I'm going to ask is the probing question and we can't identify the any proper way to the interview because why? There is no any predetermined environment and the sequence of order for these questions. Okay. Face-to-face interview plus the telephone interviews. Have you faced the telephone interviews and the face-to-face interviews? So these are some of the structured examples for the structured interview. Face-to-face interview, just you face, you are already you face for the face-to-face interview. Interviews and participate. But there are some interviews which are called as the telephone interviews. Do you have any experience regarding telephone conversations or telephone interviews? Yes. Okay, explain it. Yes, someone else. Telephone interviews, if the crowd is very big, right? If the interviewers are very big, so what they can do? So they give the telephone operator chance to, okay, filter these candidates. So they are asking, in my junior sector, my experience when I was recruited to the university, some university, so they first ask, they go through my CV and they first ask whether you can work at the weekends. That is critical. Weekends, with the salary. Full weekends, we'll give you the 2 week today, the weekday leave for you. If I said yes, okay, so then they ask, the next question, what is your expected salary? Right? So only those two questions asked from my end to clarify or else to filter the applications. Otherwise, they need to follow a lot of applications. All the things will be identified, all the set of questions, all the equal people will be interviewed. But the main questions are, what is the main requirement? Weekend workings plus the salaries. So then, by asking that question, what they are doing is they are filtering how they have conducted it, what are the choices. They just called me and told me that, okay, you have been selected, but just to clarify it, so tell me these things. If I said no, what they can do? So they are not going to ask the second question, salary scale. If I said no, I can't work at weekends, okay, so we meet and likewise they cancel my application. That is the flow of the telephone interviews. I hope you all have experience with the telephone interviews. You can conduct telephone interviews for the research as well. I know so these things are very difficult things, and you have the proper experience, plus you have already identified those things where the other subject as well. Okay, we complete these three and have a break. First one is computer assisting interview, right? Computer assisting interview, what do you mean by computer assisting interview? Some questions, some the interviews are there already there. You are conducting or else you will be participating for that interview via the computer screen. The computer display the question, then you have to provide the answer. We call those things as a computer oriented interviews. And the other one, what is it? Group interviews. What do you mean by the group interviews? Group of people are going to have that interview, right? So we are calling it as a group of interview. When we have the group of interview, the group of interviewers as group of interviewees are there, right? So therefore, it's different. When you are participating on the interview, that's also the panel is there, and you are the one invitee, and from you they are asking the question. It may be a face-to-face interview. What is the difference between group interview? So there are group of panels, plus there are group of the candidates as well. From that one, we are asking the question, then we are filtering. සමහර වෙලාවකට competitions වලට එහෙම උත්තර දෙන්න කියලා මොකද කරන්නේ? Group of individuals are there. We are asking the question from the audience. That they can answer for those group of interview. The last one, focus groups. It's also one format or else one the aspect of the group of interviews. Focus interview in the sense there is a group of panel plus the moderator is there. I hope you have that experience. Moderator is asking, group of panelists presenting a question to the moderator. Moderator asking a question from the individuals. In there also panelists group and then the candidates also group. The specialty is the moderator is there. Moderator is the question and presenting it to the group of candidates. We call that one as the focus group. Focus group and then the group interviews, face-to-face interviews, telephone interviews, and then the computer assisted interviews. So those are the some of ways that you can conduct your interviews for if you are going with the qualitative science. Okay. So we have break and come up. We'll start. Next one, observation. Observation. What do you mean by the observation?
Oh, I got that part.
So I can observe your behavior. During these 3 hours, what I can do is I can observe your behavior. Right? So how I can observe your behavior? Some are very concerned on the lectures. I can record it in my windows. Right? Someone using the mobile phone system. Someone talking with each other. Someone was to. Likewise, what I can do is I can observe your behavior and I can record it. But of course, observations. Like observation. Typical is a long way of observation. We look at grade 3 or the other base again. Kata dala paane ගිරනවද පානකට එක වසරක කරන්නේ අපි තුන වසරක කරනවා මේ මට පස්සේ අපේ එළියට ගිහින් පාරයක් තේරිනේ වාහන ගහන්න කරන්නේ කියනවා අර ඉතින් කපන්න ලෝරියක් ගියන ලෝරිය ගාලේ එකක් කරනවා රසයි වටේට පයිලි එවමන so those are right see never say what observation you can call observations, right? Observations. Can we do the observations for the research? What kind of scenarios we can do the observations? Yes. Observation replay. The way of gathering the data by watching the behavior. It may be sometimes behavior, event or nothing physical characteristics in their natural setting. Right? So in what kind of scenarios we can have the observation for our research? For what kind of scenarios? For what kind of research that you can use the observation? It's basically the way of collecting the primary data. By looking at the observation of the specific event, behavior, you are collecting what sort of data? Primary data. That is the first-hand data. So therefore, qualitative researchers, they can conduct the observation. For what kind of scenarios? Did you remember the strategy ethnography? Ethnography that you are closely monitoring the subcultures. Okay? The underworld cases, prostitute cases, the drug cases, for those kind of things, what we can do. So we can monitor those things. We don't need to ask a question from them. Right? Underworld cases, we a question no, we can't. And then the question no, I mean research context, what you can do is you can observe the data. So ethnography, you can take that skill as yes, what you can do is you can closely monitor it. Then you have to in the how to strategy for the conducting the qualitative study, but we can't conduct a quantitative study with the observation because why? So we can't convert that observation to numbers. Right? We observe something, we can take some behaviors and patterns, but we can't convert those patterns, behaviors to the numbers. So therefore, with the observations, we can't deal with the quantitative research. Okay, so there is other things. Some of the observations are covered as well, and some of the observations are what is the other one? Yes, we can call it as overt and covered. What do you mean by overt? Everyone knows they are being observed. That means, okay, I told you then, okay, so this is today, the district lecturer is coming to our class, or the director is coming to our class to monitor your behavior. That's how the results are behaving this during these 3 hours. Director is coming in the next 30 minutes. Right? Why he is coming to you? he need to observe your behavior. Sometimes he may ask some questions from you. Questions. Right? That means within that 30 minutes, what happens? You will be observed by the director. You know it. Right? You know you are going to be observed. So therefore, that is, we can call it as observation can be forward, and the other one, it may be the covered, right? So what do you mean by covered? So you don't know you are being studied. So we have the cameras. We have the cameras. So when you don't know, we have the cameras and networks. You don't know, right? That means you don't know you are going to be observed. That is what the covered observations. Therefore, so there are two types of observations, covered and the forward. Right. You have to be very careful when you are behaving. Okay. Second one, you don't know it, so therefore don't find it. So outside you know it. But also now we have to use that one as well. The record is recording your behavior. Your faces. First side, the camera is there. See here. So all of you are going to be monitored by the asset and recorded. That is the strategy. That is why even the camera during the big hours, what happens if it is underlined one. Question one. What is the last one? Turn that one and tell me. Nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio scale. Nominal, ordinal, ratio, interval scales. What do you mean by the nominal scale? Nominal scale, you ask the respondents to name their responses, nominal. And then can you use the nominal scale questions to ask the questionnaire? Yes, you can ask. Please, or what is your age? And what they can do, so they can put the tick mark for the whichever the level age to. And then what is your job? You can name whether you are coming from the assistant accountant, senior accountant, accountant. Request. What is his whole? The nominal scale, ordinal scale. Right? Can we take the ordinal scale with the questionnaires? Yes or no? What do you mean by the ordinal scale? Ordinal scale. You ask the respondents to yes, give their responses as which was as yes measurable as the older ones. Are you satisfied? Dissatisfied? Strongly satisfied? Interval scale, right? So what is the interval scale? Yes, you are taking the responses in the form of intervals. Within that interval, so there is an equal distance. For example, agree to distract agree. Disagree to neutral. Neutral to agree to strongly agree. So there is an equal distance in between these five. So example is 5-point Likert scale and the other one 7-point Likert scale for these intervals. The last one, ratio scale. What do you mean by the ratio scale? Your responses can start with the answers with the number 0, right? Equal distance is there, but they have the chance to give the answers for the 0 as well, whereas we are calling it as a ratio scale. These 4 scales can be included via research questionnaires, but most probably for your level, we are including the nominal scale plus the interval scale. And questions are formed as the 5-point Likert scale as well as the 7-point Likert scale questionnaires. Right. So to have an experience regarding the questionnaire, we'll go to the LMS and fill the questionnaire. Okay, go to the LMS quickly. I hope you all have the experience regarding the question. Evaluation plus the yeah, unfortunately, you didn't get that one. So therefore, to have an experience regarding the question, if you go to the AMS and fill the question. Okay, read this one. Can you fill it? No, no, QR is called a separate thing. QR එක නෙමෙයි dear participants කියලා කියනවා. QR එක ස්කෑන් කරන්න එපා. ඒක ස්කෑන් කරනවද? ඒක දෙන question. link එක වැඩ නැහැ. ඒක මේ Google form එකක් තියෙන්නේ. ස්කෑන් කරලා copy කරලා paste කරන්න කවුරු link එක හදාගන්න මම ඉක්මනට paste කරනවා. That QR code is I just copy paste it. That's why I know. Okay. So this is the question here. You can't read it. Just look at here. So this is the question here, right? So how we already when she is including this question here, she gave the introduction to her profile. Okay. Dear participants, right? Dear participants, I'm Gangi and final undergraduate of the accounting and business in the sub-campus in the School of Accounting and Business sub-campus Sri Lanka, and likewise what she provided her introduction, right? So, and please she has already included, so these information are confidentiality used for the sole academic purpose, right? By mentioning that one, she gave you as the questionnaire, right? Normally, this is a questionnaire, right? Heading is there, and then she asked first about your gender, right? So, what sort of a questionnaire that it is? Yes, what sort of a questionnaire? Nominal or ordinal? It's a nominal. You can fill it as a male. So then age 26 to 30, and then highest academic qualification. So then we'll give it as a professional qualifications. Current designation, what those are the nominal scales. 1 to 5. Okay, next one. Okay, so these are can be identified as the question for the right. So these are the very important things. So so these are the Likert scale questions, right? Likert scale question. The first question regarding the role of forensic accounting, basic accounting salary skills are very important to be successful. Agree, disagree, neutral, strongly agree, and then agree. Likewise, what you can do, you can give the preference to the respective the researcher. So this is called as the 5-point Likert scale. If you want, you can read it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your answers categorized into 5. So therefore, we identify it as a 5-point Likert scale questionnaire. So these are Likert scale. Likert scale in the sense the difference between these answers are equal distance. Since there are 5 answers, we can identify it as a 5-point Likert scale questions. Right. Okay. You can fill that one and have experience regarding the questionnaires. Okay. So we can identify 3 questionnaires. What those are? Personally administrated questionnaires and mail questionnaires and electronic and online questionnaires. What do you mean by the personally administrated questionnaires? Right? So when the survey is confined to local area and the good data is collected to personally administrated questionnaires. You can go to that place and you can share the questionnaire and you can ask the respondent to fill it. You are self-evaluating the responses and the questionnaires. We are following it as a self or as personally administrated questionnaires. When we are conducting our research, we don't have a chance regarding these Google form and other things. What we have done, we went to the place and we collected the responses physically by self-evaluating these questionnaires. So therefore, we can call it as a personally administrated questionnaires. And another one, mail questionnaire. Sometimes you may have that experience. You receive the email, right? You may receive the email to fill this questionnaire. Whereas we are calling it as a email questionnaires. If your data or else if your name and other details are saved in someone else or else in some database, what they can do, some of the organizations they are having that databases and they are sending you to fill that questionnaire. Your data set you are having recorded as a one data point in somewhere else. Some organizations what they are doing is they are taking that databases and they are sending that emails to that databases. අපි සමහරවිට එහෙම කරලා දැන් කියන සමහරවිට O-level A-level for example එකම O-level A-level professional courses කරන්න database එක ගන්න එක වෙන්නේ. ඉස්කෝලේ තමයි database එක ගන්න කාටද teacher කෙනෙක් හරි principal කෙනෙක් හරි කියපුවා මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒගොල්ලෝ students ලාගේ database එක දෙන්න. මේ database එක මොකද කරන්නේ? අර කියන column කොම මොකද කරන්නේ? ගෙදරට යවනකොට ගෙදරට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා ඔයාලට ප්‍රධානතන්සන ජොයින් වෙන්නේ IAS එකට එන්නේ කියලා හැම එකම එහෙම එන්නේ කොහොමද? අනිවාර්යෙන් database එකක් ඔයාලගේ තියෙන තැනකින් තමයි ඒ වගේ information අපිට යන්නේ. කියන්නේ ඔයාලා ස්කූල් වලින් එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයාලා private වල join වෙන private classes වලින් තමයි මේ details ගන්න. Likewise, what you can do is you may have, if your database or else if your data point has been recorded in somewhere else, you may have the chance to receive this email questionnaires. Other way around, when we are conducting our accounting research, so that we have a chartered accountants directly. So if we are going to do that directly, we can identify some emails. If we are conducting the research regarding chartered accountants, what we can do? We can send the email to the chartered accountant, please fill this one. Likewise, you can share the questionnaire to the emails where we are calling it as a mail questionnaires. And then electronic and the online questionnaires, right? Electronic and the online questionnaires. What do you mean by electronic and online questionnaires? Google Forms are the examples. You are sharing the questionnaires via the electronic devices. Google Forms. Sometimes it may be Google Form. There are some other methods as well. What you can do is when you are sharing the questionnaire, you are taking the electronic as well as the online platform help to share that questionnaire. We identified those set of questionnaires as the electronic or online questionnaires. Okay. See advantages and disadvantages of these each and every questionnaire has been given to you. You can read that part. That's the theoretical part. You can read it. Okay. So when you are preparing the questionnaire and the interview guidelines, I have already uploaded the elements of the guidelines. Right? You can refer that guidelines when you are preparing the questionnaire and the interview. I already uploaded the elements. Right? So you can refer that one. What are the things you should do and what are the things you have to omit when you are doing the interviews, just when you are preparing the questionnaire. Okay, so this is important data collection. Now I hope you identify what sort of data that you are going to collect for your research as well as what may be your data collection method. You may have a question if you are collecting the data to the questionnaire, right? Can you get the numbers? Or else are we going to have the birds? That is the questionable point to the students. If you are collecting the data through the questionnaire, right? So are you getting the numbers or are you getting the words? Are you getting the numbers or words? Numbers, right? Numbers. How you can identify it as a number? 5-point Likert scale questions, you can convert it again the numbers. For example, you are going to similar 1 for the strongly disagree, and then 2 for the disagree, 3 for the neutral, 4 for the strongly, 4 for the agree, and the 5 for the strongly agree. You get in the words, but you are going to have the chance to convert that word to the number. So therefore, as the researcher, if you are going to collect the data through the questionnaire, so no need to worry about whether it is a qualitative research. Some of the researchers, some of the students, so they miss this one. If you are going to have the questionnaire data, am I going to collect the primary data which is supposed to conduct the qualitative study? So that is a normal question from the student. No, because why? If you are collecting the data through the questionnaire, definitely you have the chance to convert that words into the numbers. That means ultimately, even if it is reported that as a primary, you are coming up with the numbers for the quantitative study. So therefore, you are conducting by challenge. You are not always need to deal with the secondary data. While quantitative research එකක් කරනවා කියලා secondary data research එකක් කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. annual report වලින් කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඒ data වල conclusion තරක් තමයි එන්නේ. agree disagree කියලා වල excel sheet එකකට convert කරාට පස්සේ එනවාට first responder give the strongly disagree and 9.3 කියලා තමයි ආන්නේ මේ question. ඉතින් ඒක ඔයාලට convert කරලා numbers වලට කියන එක තමයි question එක. මොකද ඒක අපි deal කරන මොන data එකක් qualitative කරලා තමයි අපි quantitative study එකට යන්නේ. Even it is the primary data, by collecting the data through the questionnaire, you have the chance to do a quantitative study. How you are converting that word responses to the questionnaire, the numbers ultimately. Okay, so this is what we have done. We already identified the issues regarding our research, and then we have identified the set of goals. That means we already identify our research objectives and other things. We planned our approach. That means from where we can collect the data, what sort of data that we are going to collect, what is it a primary data, is it a secondary data, is it a quantitative research, is it a qualitative research, what is the time period, the unit of approaches. So that part also done. That means we are closely to the analysis. Just what we need to discuss. Once you identify these methods and approaches, the next step is collecting the data. Right? Now you can start the collecting data by selecting the whether it is a primary, secondary. Basically, you have to identify the whether it is a primary data or secondary data. If it is a primary data, you have the four options. If it is a secondary data, you don't have any options. What you can do is you need to refer the reports and extract that information. Anyway, you have collected the data. You need to collect the data as the fourth step. Data collector, and that's it, the Venema. Right? And then once you collected the data, you have to analyze it. The next lesson is regarding the analysis. I'm just explaining how you can do the analysis part. That is the last lesson. So then once you analyze it, you have to come up with the results or else action on results. So those are the steps regarding the data collection up to the data collection. We'll identify the important concepts. Right. If you are collecting the secondary data, we don't need to measure the difference, right? Because why? Already those are published data confirmed by someone else. We don't need to rely on the trust and other things. But if we are collecting the data, primary data, right? You have to concern about their goodness, right? So they are for goodness. So we'll identify two measures. Two measures. We are calling those things as a goodness of measures. Goodness of measures. Now we are going to identify the goodness of measures.
Excuse me, madam.